From our top secret location in Tracktown, USA, that is now officially no longer a secret, we welcome you to Runner Space headquarters for coverage of the 2021 Bill Dillinger Invite here early on in the collegiate cross-country season. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Swangard, joined by Tom Fuhr, as we're celebrating the unveiling of this brand new set in this dedicated facility that Runner Space has put its heart and soul in over the last year or so to get prepared to do what it does best, focus on the coverage of track and field, road racing, and cross-country. And beginning year 15 of our coverage, this really sets the stage, literally, for the future of our coverage of the sport.
Agreed, and it's such an honor and privilege to be here with you, but more importantly, perhaps, to represent all of the good people that have been here, the core team, for 14 years to get to this point. This core team, including the founder, Ross Krempley, have super served the track and field fan.
And they will continue to do so. We've got a lot of exciting coverage coming up over the course of the next quarter, and then you got to look into the future with major championships at the high school, collegiate, even the youth level. We serve all audiences, and again, that dedication to the sport really day in and day out what separates this place from a lot of other places that offer up track and field coverage during the year. Before we look ahead to this really exciting day of cross-country action in Eugene, it also affords us to take a look back, because we can celebrate when we all started 14 years ago, when CEO Ross Krempley, with a camera in hand, went out to cover the very first event for runnerspace.com. So before we look ahead to 2021, let's quickly take a look back to our initial coverage of the 2007 Bill Dillinger Invite.
I looked at it last night.
Just fourth period with Go Brandon! Go Buck! All right!
Withrow. We're 1440 through 5K. Blood of University of Oregon.
Yacine on the duck. She'll be third in her.
Wow, production value has come a long way in 14 years, but fun to look back on that coverage of the 2007 edition of the Bill Dillinger Invite. A lot of familiar faces, among them guys like Matthew Centrowitz still competing.
Hey, when you've got an Olympic champion that ran in your race, that's impressive. But also his duck teammates, A.J. Acosta, Shadrick, Kiptu, Biwat, and also just kudos to Matt Withrow, who won that race. Impressive performance.
Well, we hope for some impressive performance today in the 2021 edition of the Bill Dillinger Invitational. As we take a look at the schedule, pretty tight schedule for you today. We'll have both races covered for you in about an hour's worth of time. The men will go off first, followed by the women at 40 minutes after the hour. And as we look at this course map set up at two different distances for the men and women, but this is kind of what they're used to and what they're preparing for later on in the year.
Absolutely. You know, golf courses are kind of the de rigueur, if you will, of competition for cross country. This course is a great one, University of Oregon's home course. 3 loops for the women and 4 loops for the men, so 2 Ks all the way around. Temperature will be about 70 degrees, which is kind of comfortable. It's not too bad for those that are running this kind of distance. And what's really nice is that the 6K and 8K courses are exactly the length that they'll be running at conference championships and also at NCAA regionals.
Pine Ridge Golf Club is where they stage this each and every year, though they didn't do it last year because of the pandemic. There was not a 2020 edition, but when Robert Johnson started to call around to the coaches and said, hey, we're going to do this again in 2021, do you want to come back? It wasn't hard to find some takers for that invitation. This is a good quality field. In some cases, we got some teams from out of the area, but on the men's side at least, pretty loaded up in the region.
It is, and it may be the best, absolutely best race in the region all fall. You have 10 of the top 15 teams ranked by the USTF CCCA, and they're all going to be here. And we also have 3 of those 10 that are ranked in the top 25 in the country: Oregon, Portland, and Gonzaga.
Oregon is the highest rated squad. They are currently 7th in the rankings overall. And as we look at one of the reasons why, it's because they're pretty loaded up from top to bottom with their squad. And among the notables that you wanted to put on the screen to talk about, let's start with the Oregon contingent, because they've got some pretty good ones this year.
I appreciate that. And just a non sequitur out here. I don't want people to kill me out in the audience because I didn't have their pick as one of the key individuals. These are just some, it's early in the season, that we can focus on. But nobody's ever going to disagree with you when you bring up Cooper Teare, one of the greatest middle distance runners in collegiate history, 4th in the Olympic trials this past summer in the 5,000 meters, the NCAA champion at 5,000 meters, the collegiate record holder, the absolute collegiate record holder in the mile, the 3rd fastest collegian ever at 5,000 meters. I could go on and on and on with him. But he has a really good teammate now, Aaron Bienefeld, who transferred from Cincinnati, is a German. He did that tough double in March, 5th at the NC2A indoor in the 5,000. Then he came back 3 days later, and on a 10K course, a very challenging 10K course in Stillwater, Oklahoma, was 16th in the NCAA cross country. Now the Ducks have their duo. Gonzaga has their duo as well. James Mwara, a junior, who I think is the most underrated long-distance runner in the country. This young man was 14th at the Olympic trials in the 10,000 meters. He has a lifetime best of 27:50.44. He was 9th in the NCAAs in the 10,000. Really good teammate. Yacine Guermali, a junior, and in their first 2 cross-country meets this season so far, he finished 1st and 2nd, so he is ready to go. Now, my little wild card here is Matt Strangio, the freshman from the University of Portland. Their coach, by the way, got a shout-out, Rob Connor, in his 32nd year. Anyway, Strangio won the Viking Rust Buster. I love the names of these cross-country invitationals. He won the Rust Buster 6K, again, 6K, not 8K, but I think he may be a factor in this race.
Yeah, you love the names, and we love the name here. It's a special one because it's named for the legendary coach of the University of Oregon, Bill Dillinger. Pat Tyson, who coaches up at Gonzaga. One of the reasons he's here is to honor one of his coaching mentors from back in the day, and we're bringing that Zag squad here to try to be competitive. But the racing is about to get started. Stick around. On the other side of the break, we'll have for you coverage of the 2021 Bill Dillinger Invitational. We'll be right back. Steps into the ring for his final attempt. He'll need a big throw to regain the lead. It's looking good. Feeling athletic? Get the Athletic app.
Sorry, it all happened so fast.
Ooh, $1.
Ah, good.
Oh, hey, jerk, give me that. I'm saving up for Runner Space Plus subscription. This baby put me over the top.
I wouldn't pay for that. I don't like to support stuff. Woo, stinky.
Dude, do you always throw away your socks? That's your Plus subscription right there.
Seriously?
With a Plus subscription, you'll gain access to all our live webcasts and the largest archive of running videos anywhere on the planet. Or you could just be like him.
Athletic TV brings you the largest collection of instructional videos for coaches and athletes on the planet. Learn from top industry professionals in over 40 sports and fitness categories. Sign up today at athletic.tv and get 14 days free. So a good look here at Pine Ridge Golf Club as we get set for the men's 8-kilometer race at the 2021 Bill Dillinger Invitational. Paul Swangard joined by Tom Fuhrer, and the gun is up. And always one of the more fun shots, Tom, as we get things underway here, which is the sea of chaos rather than a sea of tranquility as they get things underway here. A golf course setup and a nice funnel here to the front. And, again, it's not about always your front runners. It's all the way back to that fifth runner for that all-important team score today.
Very true, and it's just the majesty of the beginning of a cross-country race. What I love about cross-country is that you have, in track, you have people running the 8, the 15, the steeple, the 5, and the 10. And in cross-country, you have the summit meeting. And so you really find out who the most, versatile distance runner is. I just noticed in the beginning there, Peter Harold of UCLA, their fine sophomore, was in that lead group, but obviously things are moving quickly here, and positions will change accordingly.
Do have timing mats set up around the course. We hope to be able to give you updates of not only individual runners, but the all-important team scores as the top 5 athletes populate on. But early on here, it's everyone settling into the rhythm of the race.
And what a picture-perfect day it is. I mean, a beautiful Oregon fall day, about 70, 72 degrees, maybe a little bit warmer than people want to run, but this is majestic. If there's ever the Chamber of Commerce day, it's just gorgeous.
Well, there's a lot of buzz in the community this week. It's move-in day on the University of Oregon campus. Football playing on Saturday night, so it's kind of the opening salvo of a traditional college weekend in Western Oregon.
Most definitely. And, they say, what do they say, Paul, that it never rains in Austin Stadium? And so it looks like this weekend it's going to be spectacular there, too, for the game against Arizona, which should be a Duck win, as Arizona is absolutely not very good at football this year.
Way to go out on a limb with your commentary in college football there, Tom. So we are early on. Good crowd out at Pine Ridge Golf Club for the 2021 edition of the Bill Dillinger Invitational. As we get a good look, Cooper Teare in the mix there. James Moira of Gonzaga up near the front as well. So a lot of our favorites already up in the mix here.
Yeah, and with Teare and Moira, not only are they favorites, but they're two of the best in the country, period. And it should be very interesting to see what kind of shape everybody's in. Cooper Teare has that very memorable running style, and I'm sure that's how you picked him up so quickly. But he has that running style. I don't know how to describe it, but it's very notable for the way he does it. He's got a nice long stride. He has kind of a little bit of a funky arm action, but boy, whatever it is works fantastic, because this guy is absolutely one of the greats of all time in the middle distances.
They come around the loop here. They're actually going to make 3 full loops of this course, and then the 4th loop a little bit shorter to get them to the 8-kilometer finish line. It's always a great setup when they can have these tight loop courses that affords the fans the opportunity to move back and forth between different vantage points on the course. But you're all surprised, Tom, sort of like 4 minutes into this race, pretty still tightly packed among the, and there's 100-plus runners on the course, and they're all within maybe 3-4 seconds of crossing that mat.
I guess that part of it I'm a bit surprised, to have the lead group that we have. I mean, this race is going to be over somewhere around 22:45 to 23 minutes. So you figure that there is going to be some sort of breakaway here in the not too distant future. And I do see Amir Adu of Washington State, the junior. He was second in the Washington State Cross Country Open just a couple of weeks ago, 24th in the NCAA West Regional in 2019.
So nearing the 5-minute mark, waiting for someone to make a move. Moira now puts on a little bit of pace and going to charge this group a little bit faster from the front now. And Tom, you talked about, his 2020, or actually 2021 season, even though we talked about the Olympic trials and the Olympics in the context of 2020, making that late bid to get into the Olympic trials, and that experience bodes well, though he's looking maybe for someone else to take the reins. He looking around, looking for help.
Completely. Now, listen, this is a legitimate guy, and as far as his shape, they've already had 2 cross-country races this year. He's only run one of them. He was second to his teammate, Yacine Guermali. But now you can see Cooper Teare. It looks like Reed Brown is in there too, in that group just behind Moara.
Yeah, Reed Brown far right of your screen, and then Bienefeld, the transfer from Cincinnati, I believe, right there next to Teare, the German. You talked about it as we talked about in our pre-meeting preview discussions. You think the transfer is going to be an important ingredient to the Ducks' success?
No question about it. And you get a coach like Ben Thomas with a talent like Bienefeld, and that could make beautiful music together. You know, they that seems to me like a great mix. And I think this kid, I mean, he was 16th in the NCAAs earlier this year when they had to run in March due to the pandemic, and that was after running 5th indoors in the 5,000 just 3 days before. So I really like him.
One of the other things you tend to do here early on in the race is just to do a little bit of color assessment as it relates to uniforms. Again, top 5 coming across the line will constitute the score, and looks like most of the Boise State Air Force up there as well. The Ducks have a good contingent. Maybe Gonzaga lacking a few extra bodies near the front, though Moara, again, having shown interest in the lead from time to time. He's now up there in front as well. Now 7 minutes into this 8-kilometer race.
Yep, 7 minutes into a race, again, be around 23 minutes. Boise State is a little underrated, I feel. They're ranked 6th in the West. They have 3 guys that I really like, Dario DeCaro, Jack Leach, and Jonathan Shields. They're all seniors. They're very experienced, and I think they'll be a factor in the team battle here behind Oregon.
Other team to mention is the University of Portland, always bringing quality talent.
Absolutely, and Zach Kirk and Matt Strangio are the guys that I would look at from Portland as absolute threats in this race. But here's the deal. If you are not a good deal ahead of Cooper Teare at the end of this race, you have no shot, because that guy will run you down. So he could be very content to stay exactly where he is, which is to the right, and wait it out. And I think that's what he'll do. Meanwhile, Oregon, I count 3 of their guys, Brown, Bienefeld, and Teare, right there in the front as we expected. So from a team perspective, all they have to do is get Jackson Messler in there, and maybe one other, somebody else, and they should win this thing.
Well, maybe a potential future Oregon Duck there on the side. We had a youth race that preceded this event. Had a really nice group of young runners, and one testing his fitness against these collegiate men as they work their way up and around this golf course at Pine Ridge Golf Club. For those who've been to the region, this was once the Springfield Country Club, went through a little bit of a rebranding. Still a good spot for the golfers, and here in the early fall, a nice transition into one of the top cross-country courses in the Pacific Northwest. Good shot at our leaders here as they near 9.5 minutes into the race.
Brian Barcea of Washington State, along with his teammate Amir Ado, have been up in the front there for quite some time. And you can see them on the left. And now Cooper Teare starting to push it a little bit as he's moved up even closer to the front. I would say, Paul, if we don't see some movement at around the 12-minute mark, that would be a bit of a surprise.
And that would mark about the halfway mark of this race. Again, 8 kilometers for the men. The women will follow here in a few short minutes, about 40 minutes after the hour, and they will go 6 kilometers for their race. Those distances consistent with what we'll see for the remainder of this collegiate cross-country schedule through the conference championships.
So on the far left, that is Zach Kirk, who I was talking about before with the Portland Pilots in the purple top. And his credentials, he was 65th in the NCAA cross country earlier this year. And you might say, well, gosh, what's, 65th, or actually it was 60th. What's 60th? That's no big deal. Again, when you're taking the 800, well, not the 800 so much, but the 1,500, the steeple, the 5 and 10,000 runners, best in the country, and throwing them all into a race, finishing 60th in the NCAA championships is a big deal, and that does make you a great runner.
So 11 minutes into this race at the 2021 Bill Dillinger Invitational, James Moira of Gonzaga now pressing the pace up front.
And Paul, just to give you an idea, he is a 4:03.96 miler, in addition to being a 27:50.44 10,000 meter runner. He's run 3,757. He's 13:36 for 5,000. Again, he made the NCAA finals in both the 10 and the 5. And he's a really good athlete. So when people see him out front, now you see Cooper Teare knows, I got to stay. This guy is good. I'm going to have to move with him. And that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, trying to cover the surge there. He and Bienefeld both reacting to that, not trying to let Moira get too far away. And prophetic statement from my co-host Tom Fuhrer about 4 minutes ago, saying that he would be surprised if that group stayed in a large pack about the 12-minute mark. Well, guess what? We're 12 minutes and 6 or 7 seconds into this race, and all of a sudden we're starting to see it thin out a little bit, and Moira trying to lead the breakaway pack at this point.
They all look comfortable. So Moira has more races under his belt in cross country than do Teare, and it's been a while, and Bienefeld, because this is their first race of the season.
And Tom, what type of experience benefit can you say that Moira and maybe more notably for Teare, given where he finished in the 5K at the Olympic trials, but that kind of elite level experience had to boost their confidence going into the reset between the track season and coming into this fall campaign.
I agree, and I think what it does is it has you confident in your shape. You know that you are a national class runner, if not more. And that gives you a lot of confidence. Also gives you confidence to maybe, hey, you know what, I can back off. I can rest a little bit. I have a good base. And you just have more confidence in yourself, both as a racer and with your training. And that makes all the difference in the world. So much of this is mental, Paul, as you know. So much of this is mental.
So Cooper Teare now has covered that move by James Moira of Gonzaga and has the benefit of his new teammate, Bienefeld, on his left shoulder as they're 3 aside here. The chase pack, it's hard to tell with this front-on shot just how far back they are, maybe 5 to maybe a max of 10 meters. See a couple of Boise State athletes in the mix there, and they're doing well. And again, it's the 5 deep equation here. Gonzaga now has their top 2 runners up in that lead group. Oregon has its top 2, and so that team race, again, will be the race behind these lead racers.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting is I would have expected Moira and Teare and Bienefeld to kind of break away from the rest of this group because they're really not in their class, putting it bluntly. But now things are tightening up again. And I think that's Dario DeCaro of Boise State, who's at least one of those 3 Boise State runners that I was mentioning, all seniors, all who have, really good credentials. And there's a second pack there that could help determine some of the team scoring situations.
So nearing the 16-minute mark of this race, less than 10 minutes from the finish line, and Cooper Teare of Oregon battling a fellow Olympic trials qualifier at the collegiate level last summer, and James Moira of Gonzaga, and Marseille of Washington State up there in the mix. So Amir Otto as well, but
and Yacine Guermali of Gonzaga. Gonzaga's got 3 in the top 10 right now. But the problem with Gonzaga, and the reason why they are ranked 25th in the country, which is a good ranking, but it drops off after those 3. And Portland is packing their athletes pretty well. There are a lot of the Portland pilots in that later group. When they came by one of the intermediate splits, Paul, Portland had 9, 11, 12, 15, and 17, and 18. That's pretty good packing. So we're looking at about 6 more minutes left in this race, so things are going to start to get very serious.
so in that lead group is Cooper Teare of Oregon, James Moira of Gonzaga, Bienefeld of Oregon, Guermali of Gonzaga, and then they go, what now, 6 or 7 deep, Tom?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Guermali has really been good. Guermali is a 1350 5K guy, 343 1500 guy. In the 2 cross-country races that he's run this year, he was second in the Cougar Invite and first in the Clash of the Inland Northwest. He is a legit guy and absolutely should have a place at the table.
So it's Moira and Teare, Bienefeld, Guermali. That third zag is Will Smith, Ibrahim of Boise State. And then back to the pair of Cougars now running next to each other but losing ground on the leaders, Marseille and Adu. So now down to 5 up here in front. And you see Ibrahim of Boise State now starting to look back and not forward, and that's always a dangerous sign as he's losing traction with the leaders.
He is, and I am anticipating at some point here that this is going to become a 3-man race. Bienefeld just seems to be a little bit further back and having a little bit harder time, but maybe that will change. Maybe he's just having a bad spot here. It happens to runners. They hit a bad patch. But Teare looks great, Moira looks great, and Guermali's looking around. So I presume he's doing great. This is going to be exciting down here at the end. I mean, I just don't think anybody can kick with Cooper, but let's see. And as I said that, here he goes. It looks like he's making a little mini move here, or maybe a maxi move.
Yeah, using the rolling hills here to try to boost his confidence and his pace. It's starting to break a little gap now. Let's see if he can hold it.
And that was a great point you made, Paul. He used the course as a means to make his move. He had that little downhill section, and boom, he was off to the races, literally and figuratively. And no, it's over. It's over. He has got too big a lead right now, and he looks way too comfortable. And the Gonzaga kids will be battling out Bienefeld for second place. And Bienefeld is going to try to make a run for it here. So it could be a duck 1-2. Bienefeld just went by. So we'll see. But look at Cooper Teare. I mean, it's like he's out here on a Sunday jog. I mean, he just looks so good, so relaxed, so fresh. If I'm anybody in the NCAA right now and I'm looking at this, I'm saying to myself, I got trouble on my hands. This kid is just looking so good. I mean, he didn't really have to do anything to get that lead.
After taking the last year off the cross-country circuit to really focus on the indoor campaign, we had that unique situation where indoors and cross-country were being run simultaneously, and that proved a decision point for a lot of athletes. Some did it well doing both. Bienefeld, his teammate, among them. But in the case of Cooper Teare, who, maybe had this circled on his calendar, Tom, because you go back to 2017, he was 9th in this race. He was 4th in 2019, and his body of work, he'll have much bigger stages for the possibilities of bigger results, but winning the home meet on the cross-country schedules got to be something he put on the goal list to start this year.
I bet you're right about that. And it's so nice, too. Bill Dillinger was such a great man, great coach. He's still, of course, living at 87. But for him to be able to see a talent like this run in the race that has his name must feel really, really special and really, really good. And when it comes down to it, this kid may be one of the great Oregon Ducks in history. I mean, he's already a collegiate record holder. He's already 3rd on the collegiate list in the 5,000, and a great kid to boot. And Bienefeld right there. Like I mentioned before, when you've got Ben Thomas as a coach and you have a talent like Bienefeld, you're going to make great things happen.
Yeah, looking at the team race too, Tom, as we get into the closing stretches of this race, Oregon now with their top 5 through that last split we had in the top 28. Gonzaga has 4 guys in the top 17, but then you have to go all the way down into 42nd place for their 5th guy. They got a trio running there, so that late surge by their 5th runner is going to be key to their team's fortunes. But right now, at the front of the pack, looking back once again and seeing his new teammate in tow, Cooper Teare coming to the finish line, being embraced by this crowd at Pine Ridge Country Club. 3rd time's the charm for Cooper Teare as he takes his first ever win at the Dellinger Invitational, winning the men's 8K. And Bienefeld will finish 2nd, and Gonzaga will finish 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, and kudos to Guermali and Mawara. And here comes Gonzaga's 3rd runner as he holds up his jersey. That's Will Smith. So between Gonzaga, Boise, and Portland and Oregon, it's going to be a pretty good finish here from a team standpoint. Now, also, Abdel Nasser Hussein, the freshman from Oregon, finished 11th. That's a really nice performance for a freshman. Matt Strangio, who I mentioned to you before, he finished 9th. I think he was the #1 freshman in the race. But Portland's got him packed in. 9th, 13th, 15th, 16th. I think
Oregon's 5th runner, Jack Urian, just finished in 22nd. Gonzaga's 5th runner finished in 28th. So we'll have to do the math here, because Gonzaga with a strong finish, 3, 4, and 5 for their top 3 runners. Oregon goes 1, 2, 11, 14, and 22. If any of the unattached athletes were to have finished above them, we'd have to pull them out of the standings. So we'll get the team results here for you in a moment as we watch the sea of runners continue to cross the finish line.
Yeah, it's closer on the team side than I thought, Paul, it would be. And kudos to, I've used kudos too much, but Gonzaga and Portland really came to run in Springfield, Oregon today. They really, really did a nice job. Another really good performance was by Nick Scheller of Air Force, who finished 7th. That was kind of unlooked for. And that's a really nice performance by him. Kyle Radosevich from Gonzaga, who won the Cougar Classic earlier this fall. A nice finish for him in 17th. So as you mentioned, Pat Tyson working his magic over there at Gonzaga.
And Tom, it looks like the top 5 have now been added up on the team side, and it would appear that Oregon has won the men's Dellinger Invitational with 50 points. Gonzaga second with 57. Portland finishing third with 89. Boise State and Air Force rounding out the top 5. So the big schools that came to play sort of delivered, and Oregon, highest ranked team, number 7 in the country, comes out the winning team on this day.
Yeah, and a great race. I feel like that race went pretty much according to what you would think at the front of the pack. But what I was surprised in was the depth that Gonzaga showed. That was really, really impressive. And Portland also good depth in their performance.
So let's take a moment to watch the final few runners come across the finish line as the men's race wraps up here at the Dellinger Invitational.
Air Force with 102. Colorado State with 145. And that looks like it's going to hold. Doug Swinton and Cooper Teare and Aaron Bienefeld go 1-2. James Moore of Gonzaga. Guermali is third. Guara is fourth. Bill Smith of Gonzaga. On the hit, Royce Burgess, sixth. Washington State gets eighth.
Eugene, Paul Swanker joined by Tom Fuhr as we get set to preview the women. But first, before we do that, just one final thought on the men's team race. One, of course, the race overall by Cooper Teare. Bienefeld, his new teammate, finishes second, and they take the win. But Gonzaga and Coach Pat Tyson came to play today and finished second.
They did, and I'm glad you're giving me one more opportunity to say something.
Oh, I'll give you more than one.
Thank you. Air Force. I want to shout out to Air Force. They were ranked 12th in the Mountain Region. They finished third in the team title today. Shout out to them. That was a great performance. And Nick Scheller with that 7th place finish, that just kind of led the whole brigade.
So as we expected, it was going to be a competitive race on the men's side with some of the best teams in the region coming in. As we now switch our attention to the women's race coming up here in about 10 minutes from now. Another loaded field. If we can, I don't know if we can go back and look at the course map once again, just so you can have a flavor of the setup of the race course here. It's a little bit of a shorter distance of 6 kilometers. Same track, and the conditions here are certainly warranting a good, fast race. There's no damage done to the course given the conditions that we're in.
No, it should be a terrific race, Paul, and it should be a couple degrees even cooler than what the men had. And a shorter distance. So I'm expecting some quick hoofing out there for this race.
So let's talk about the women that are here on the team side. It's a bit more of a national flavor with the women's squad. We have 5 ranked teams in the country, including the highest ranked squad, which is the number 4 Arkansas Razorbacks. Couldn't find a hotel in Eugene because of the upcoming football game and its move-in week. So Coach Harder's got them up in Corvallis, just coming in for the race and then leaving. But we expect them to be very competitive against this very deep field of women.
Well, that's a good stat. And Coach Harder, 32nd year at Arkansas. And I can remember when he was coaching at Cal Poly, so that shows you how old I am. But yes, Arkansas is ranked 4th in the nation. And, you know, what's a bit deceiving about Arkansas, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on them, is that they didn't run very well at the NCAAs last spring, but that's because it was hard. They were really pointed towards winning the indoor championship, which they did. They have no such conflicts this year. So that 4th may actually be a little bit low for them. And then we have a couple of other big ones, Boise State, Colorado State, who has 3 super runners that we'll talk, I'm sure, more about, Oregon State, and Louis Quintana's done such a great job up there, and then Portland. So we've got some really nice teams. This one should be really even closer than the men's race was, probably behind Arkansas. And we can't forget that the Oregon Ducks themselves, the host school, are ranked 24th in the nation as well.
Snuck into that top 25 this week at number 24, 1 spot behind. You mentioned the quality of what they're doing and brewing in Corvallis as they're 1 spot above them in the standings at number 23. So let's talk about some of the individuals, and I guess you have to start with the Razorbacks, very deep, and they've got a lot of options to field a team of 5 strong runners.
Absolutely. Chrissy Gear, who is just a workhorse for Arkansas and has been since she transferred there from Furman. She ran the 1,500 and the steeple at the Olympic trials, so she qualified in both. She was second at the NCAA indoor mile and in the distance medley relay, and then a couple days later ran 21st at the NCAA cross-country championships. So it shows you she is one workhorse. Lauren Gregory, her teammate, don't sleep on her. She was second at the NCAA's indoors in the 3,000 and was a distance medley relay teammate of Gear. I didn't put it on our list, but hopefully we'll get a chance to see Taylor Ewert, the best young walk prospect the United States has ever had, and she is running well for Arkansas, so hopefully we get a chance to see her. A couple other people I like, Kaylee Mitchell, a sophomore from Oregon State who was brilliant last year in cross country, 7th at the Pac-12's, 20th at the NCAA's. Anna Pataki from Hungary, a senior for the University of Portland. She won the WCCs this past March. And then finally, my dark horse, Addie Engel, a freshman from Ohio State who beat some big names like Erica Vandelende and Abby Cahoot-Jackson and Caitlin Hart in the Harry Groves Spiked Shoe Invitational, where she finished 4th. A young freshman. She's got a lot of gumption, so I think she may fit into this somewhere. And it's nice that Ohio State traveled all the way out from Columbus to Eugene. I wish the football team had done that last year, but c'est la vie.
Well, with tongue firmly in cheek, hopefully the women's cross-country team at Ohio State's more competitive than their football team against the University of Oregon. Can only do that because the scoreboard doesn't lie. We are set to go with a very deep and quality field on the women's side for this 2021 Bill Dillinger Invitational. We'll step aside for a quick break, and we'll have the racing on the other side. Back with the call of the women's 6 kilometer at the Bill Dillinger Invitational right after this.